This is a cold Valentine weekend. Temperatures dropping below freezing and anticipated ice and maybe some snow flurries. And yet on this weekend, people are still making romantic plans, hoping to throw another log on the fire of passion. And inevitably this weekend, there will be lots of disappointments. Someone forgot to do something or did something they shouldn't have done. And it made the weekend inside just as cold as it's going to be outside. B.B. King, the king of soul here in Mississippi and around the world, had a song entitled, "The Thrill Is Gone." The thrill is gone. You know you've done me wrong, baby, and you'll be sorry someday. The thrill is gone, although I'm still alive, although I still live on, but so lonely I'll be. I'm free from your spell, and now that it's all over, all I can do is wish you well. The thrill is gone. About 25% of couples who present themselves for marriage therapy say one form or another of this sentence: I love him, but I'm not in love with him. The thrill has gone. That feeling has left them. That sentence, I'm in love with her, but I love her, but I'm not in love with her, could mean it'd be a veiled statement for I really want out of this relationship. And it's easier to say, I love her, but I'm not in love with her, rather than say, this relationship is over. It could be code for I've met someone else. It could mean that I just feel emotionally distant from my spouse. Our sex life no longer excites me, or I'm depressed. B.B. King describes accurately what happens in the brain when we fall in love. There's a thrill, a chemical high that draws us to one another. And that chemical high is not meant to last. There are two basic human instincts. One is to merge with another, and the other is to be independent. From a mother and the infant clings, merges with the mother's body and life, and yet has this desire to be independent. And there's tension that always exists between that desire to merge and to be independent. And that influences our romantic relationships too, where we desire the magic of merging with someone, but then we also realize that we need the independence of developing our own life. And that is where the tension begins, and sometimes can affect that sense of emotional thrill that we have for one another. Remember when you first fall in love with your spouse or your or former boyfriend, girlfriend? There's that high, almost a temporary madness that exists there, where you're obsessing over the person. You don't ever want to be apart from them. And when you're apart from them, you're obsessively thinking about how can we get back together. There's an overestimation of the good qualities of the person. When that chemical high is there, you don't see all those negatives that are there. It's only after you're married and the high begins to drop that you go, oh my goodness, I never noticed that when we were dating. You have these feelings of excitement in the presence of another. That chemical high is meant to attract us to one another so that we will merge, the magic of merger, but it's not meant to last. It is soon gone. And when it's gone, we do not need to assume that the relationship is over. We've been studying some of the writings of the Apostle John, and he's talked a lot about love. And in 1 John chapter 4, verses 7 and 8, we read a few weeks ago where John wrote to us, "Dear friends, let us continue to love one another, for love comes from God, and anyone who loves is a child of God and knows God. But anyone who does not love does not know God, for God is love." I think it's sometimes easier to apply this passage that says that if we say we love God, then we'll love the brothers and sisters in the church, and even love the people that we don't even know in the community. And yet it's sometimes hard to bring it back to those most intimate of relationships, like a marriage or a relationship with a parent or a sibling, in that incubator of the family, to also know that this passage is talking about that. If you say you know God, who is divine love, then that divine love should permeate the relationships you have in your family. It's important because in our families is where we learn how to relate to the world around us, our attachment styles from those experiences we have. Do we feel anxiety in the relationships we have within our family? Or do we feel distance within our family? Are we overly engaged to where we check in with each other about whether we want English peas or green beans for lunch? Are we so disengaged that we don't even know that the person has taken on a new school course or something significant in their life? We learn those patterns of relating to the world from our family of origin. And it impacts how we relate to people at work, how we relate to people in the church, in the community. When we have lots of anxiety about whether that person will be there for us, it's because we learned that anxiety in our family of origin. And if we learned that when things get a little heated, that it's best to distance ourselves, we learn that also in our family of origin. It's interesting to me to see that even strong Christians in Christian history did not always enjoy a good marriage or put the time they should have into it. The founder of the Methodist Church, John Wesley, who was so instrumental in expanding the gospel all over England and then across the United States and the frontier there, he suffered a fall one time on the ice-covered London Bridge, and he was carried to the home of a widow named Mary Vassell. Her sailor husband had died, and he was recuperating there in her home. And within 1 week, the two had married each other. But the results were disastrous. They had a terrible relationship. In fact, the couple spent so little time together, so distant from each other, that in 1771, John Wesley wrote in his journal, "I came to London and was informed that my wife died on Monday. This evening she was buried, though I was not informed of it." That's John Wesley. That's his marriage. He said, "I was so distant, I didn't even know my wife died earlier this week, and I didn't know that they buried her earlier this evening, but somebody happened to tell me about it." Big disconnect. If we can be so committed to Christian service, or so committed to our jobs, or so committed to our recreation, or so committed to our friendships, but we have a disconnect with those people that are within our family, that nuclear family, and in particular with our spouse, then that is a major signal that there's something wrong, because we learn the skills of relating to the world through those skills that we have in relating to our family of origin. Marriage is built upon commitment and trust. A commitment we made to one another, and a practice that we have that we will not be the source of pain for the other. I will protect you. You're safe with me. Commitment and trust are the foundations of marriage, not a high, not a feeling that we have, not just because the thrill is gone. We always go back to that commitment and that trust. And then we begin to build the relationship again by noticing things that we had not noticed about the person. On your wedding day, you married someone, but 20 years later, that person is not the same person they were, and you're not the same person you were. Hopefully, and in all likelihood, you either have grown some more or you decline, but you're not the same person. Successful marriages learn to change with one another. We learn to love how the person is emerging and who they are. We grow together. And that means seeing the other person, your spouse, as a person of a new adventure, something else to explore, something else to learn. What about this mystery of this person that I'm married to, who's made in the image of God? How can I express caring toward them and compassion, a connection, creativity, those attributes that come from the image of God living in me, connecting with the image of God living in the other person. So when the thrill is gone, does that mean the relationship is over? By no means. It simply means that we need to begin to create some new love maps about one another, to discover something about this person that I did not know before. And it will build me as a follower of Jesus Christ to gain those skills. Marriage is like a training ground, and we're working to bond with each other, to build boundaries with each other, and to separate the good and the bad in each other, to forgive one another. All the traits of what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ can be taught in that one training ground, that incubator of the marriage and even the nuclear family. We learn skills that are essential to being followers of Jesus Christ. And it's to our detriment and the detriment of the kingdom if we ignore that. Because God is love. And if He truly dwells within me and within you, then His love will impact those relationships around us, including those people that we live with. Now, I'm not saying the thrill can never be there, because feelings come back. They're seasonal, they're cyclical. There can be gray days and there can be sunshiny days. You felt it once, you can feel it again. It'll be based on new information you have, new discoveries you made about this person. But being in love and staying in love requires work. It requires a reminder that I made a commitment to this person and I'm going to build trust with them over time. We'll continue to grow with each other as we are committed and trust each other. I think John's words to the church are wonderful words to us on this Valentine weekend. Dear friends, let us continue to love one another, for love comes from God. Anyone who loves is a child of God and knows God, but anyone who does not love does not know God, for God is love.